Nobody knows where myths came from or how they started, but for many years, in some cases centuries, these myths turn out to be true. Some of the stories of our past are true, however, there are other myths that have been debunked. Facts First presents Common Myths That Most People Still Believe. The Declaration of Independence was not signed on July 4th. We've been celebrating Independence Day on July 4th in the U.S. ever since 1776. We do this because we believe the Declaration of Independence was signed on that day. But that's not really true. On July 4th, the language of the document was approved. It wasn't signed until much later, August 2nd, which means that America didn't become an independent nation until a month later. That's the day that we should be celebrating, but oh well. Any excuse for barbecues and explosives, right? Michael Jordan being cut from the high school basketball team. Michael Jordan's story of perseverance inspired many people, and according to the story, Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. Michael practiced and practiced until he became one of the greatest players of all time. Well, the story is partially correct. Yes, Jordan was cut from the varsity team, however, it was during his sophomore year. Back then, it was uncommon for underclassmen to play for the varsity team at all, so Michael went back to junior varsity. When he was an upperclassman, he made varsity. Sushi doesn't mean raw fish in Japanese. Most people think that the word sushi means raw fish in the Japanese language, but that's not true. The word roughly translates to sour rice, and that makes a lot of sense, since people use fermented rice to preserve their fish. When you put the two together, you have sushi. Caesar salad wasn't named after the Roman emperor. Most people think Caesar salad was named after Julius Caesar, the Roman emperor, but nope. It's named after a Mexican chef named Caesar Cardini. He created the salad in his restaurant in Tijuana. All these years, poor Caesar didn't even get the credit that he deserved for making one of the most popular salads in the world. The Chinese did not invent the fortune cookie. When you order Chinese food, you get a fortune cookie or maybe a couple or several with your meal if you're like me and you ask for all of those for dessert. Anyway, most people think that they were invented in China, but no, the first fortune cookies were served in the U.S., in California. The restaurant who made the cookies based it on a similar recipe from Japan, but the concept of putting the fortune inside, that came from a restaurant in California. Swallowing gum. Growing up, we were all told that if we swallowed our gum, it would stick to our stomachs for 7 years. Well, most kids believed their parents when they were told that, and they went on to tell other children the same thing. Well, the good news is you can swallow as much gum as you want. It digests just as quickly as any other food you eat, and it goes through the system just like everything else. It's completely harmless. The only man-made structure visible from space. Most people think that the only man-made structure that's visible from space is the Great Wall of China. And yeah, it's true that you can see this incredible structure from space, but it's not the only one. You can see the pyramids of Giza from space as well. Even though there are other structures visible from space, it doesn't take away from the wonder that is the Great Wall of China. Elementary, my dear Watson. When you think about Sherlock Holmes and his most famous catchphrase, "Elementary, dear Watson," well, you're actually wrong. In the Arthur Conan Doyle novels, that was never said. The line was not spoken until Basil Rathbone said it in 1929 in the film The Return of Sherlock Holmes. Arthur Conan Doyle came up with the concept of Sherlock Holmes, and the books were great, but he does not deserve credit for the catchphrase, "Elementary, my dear Watson." Sharks don't get cancer. In 1992, the book Sharks Don't Get Cancer was released, and that made people with cancer all over the world want to get their hands on some shark cartilage, believing it might cure them. Well, not only does the cartilage not cure cancer, but sharks can get cancer. This debunks the entire theory that shark body parts could be a wonder drug for this deadly disease. Chameleons change color to blend with their surroundings. Chameleons are really cool creatures, and if you have one, it could be green one day, orange the next. Most people believe chameleons have this ability to protect themselves in the wild. A chameleon can change its color to blend in with its surroundings as a method of camouflage. If you believe that, you have been misinformed. Chameleons have this ability to help them regulate their body temperature. It also allows them to communicate their mood to other chameleons. Iron maidens didn't really exist. We all think that during medieval times, iron maidens were used as a method of torture, but it's not true. It was a story that was made up during the 18th century to make the Middle Ages seem more barbaric than they really were. If you visit a museum and you see an Iron Maiden, it's just a misrepresented reconstruction of other devices. It's kind of nice to know that people really weren't that cruel in the Middle Ages, isn't it? Freezing your batteries won't help them last longer. If you're keeping your batteries in the freezer because your grandmother said it'll make them last longer, honey, well, take them out of the freezer now. Keeping your batteries in the freezer will actually cause more harm than good. Extreme temperatures, be it cold or heat, will drain the power in the battery faster. The best temperature to store your batteries at is room temperature. It's the only way to keep them from draining. Sorry, Grandma. Kissing toads will give you warts. Have you been searching for your Prince Charming but just can't seem to find him, ladies? Well, in the fairy tales, you can kiss a toad and he'll turn into a handsome prince. If you're desperate and you want to try to kiss a toad to see if he will turn into a prince, well, go for it. We're not going to stop you. But when it comes to the wart thing, it's just a myth. Toads don't give you warts, even if you kiss them. The whole frog into a prince thing's probably not going to work either, but go ahead, kiss the toad. I'm sure they'd love the attention. You likely won't become a prince, but hey, you won't have to deal with warts either. Napoleon complex. The term Napoleon complex came from people believing that the French emperor was very short, but he wasn't. Napoleon was actually 5 feet 7 inches tall, which was slightly above average for people during that time. So how did he become short? Well, his enemies spread rumors about him being short to make people less afraid of him and his leadership. It was a way of shaming him, and apparently it worked. Blonde-haired people will be extinct by the year 2202. Between 2002 and 2006, there were reports that the World Health Organization performed a study that showed that blonde hair would not exist any longer by the year 2202. But that's not true. The World Health Organization never performed such a study, and blonde hair is going to last just as long as any other hair color – brown, red, or blue, or pink, or polka dot. Yeah, we'll still have hair dyes. Where the rumor of this blondes going extinct study started is unknown, but it's just that. It's a rumor. Cutting an earthworm in half will create 2 healthy worms. I remember hearing this as a kid, that if you cut an earthworm in half, then the missing end will grow back on both of them. You'll suddenly now have 2 full worms. Well, that's not true. If you cut a worm in 2, only the half with the mouth will survive, and it survives for only a few minutes. Now that you know this, leave the worms alone. You're not doing them any good by cutting them in half. Your fingernails continue to grow after you die. One unsettling thing people believe is that when you die, your fingernails continue to grow, as well as your hair. That's not true, though. The reason a person's nails and hair look longer once they've died is the skin begins receding away from them. So you can rest easy. When you die, nothing continues to grow, except your stench. Play it again, Sam. In the 1942 film Casablanca, people believe that Ingrid Bergman says, "Play it again, Sam." This isn't true. People got this common catchphrase wrong. Now, they do have it partially right. Right before the song, As Time Goes By starts to play, and Ingrid says, "Play it once, Sam, for old time's sake." Now, whoever came up with the catchphrase, "Play it again, Sam," just kind of cut the line in half. Tossing a penny off the Empire State Building can kill someone. Not that we're recommending you do this, but we've all heard the story that if you toss a penny off the Empire State Building, it can kill a person walking on the sidewalk below. Some people will tell you that their mother's friends, cousins, neighbor died that way or something, but it's just a myth. Again, we're not saying that you should do this, because if you do it, you're still going to leave somebody with a nasty bump on their head. A penny can only reach a terminal velocity of between 30 and 50 miles per hour. That's still enough to hurt. If you did throw a penny off the Empire State Building, you're not a murderer, you're just a jerk. You only have 5 senses. Growing up, we were taught that we have 5 senses: hearing, seeing, touching, tasting, and smelling. This belief is a construct devised by the Greek philosopher Aristotle. Humans actually have between 14 and 20 senses, including the sense of time and the sense of acceleration. Sorry, Aristotle, we're on to you. Hey, wait a minute, this means we all have a 6th sense, right? Do you see dead people too? Subscribe for more.